Before McDonald's lets you open a single restaurant, they want to see $500,000 in liquid, unborrowed cash just sitting in your account. Not net worth, not home equity, actual cash you can hand over tomorrow. And that's before you've paid a single dollar of the $45,000 franchise fee or the millions it costs to actually build the place. Most people think owning a McDonald's is a starter business, something you buy with a small business loan and a dream. It's actually one of the most expensive franchises on earth to get into, and one of the most profitable once you're in. This is a business built for people who already have serious capital, not people looking to escape a 9-to-5 with their savings account. But here's the part that surprises most people. Once you clear that gate, the actual unit economics are some of the best in retail food, and understanding exactly why separates the operators making $150,000 a year from the ones making 7 figures across multiple locations. So let's actually open the books on this one.
The reality check? From the outside, a McDonald's looks simple. Burgers, fries, a drive-through line that never stops moving, teenagers behind the counter. It looks like a business anyone could run. Order in, prep, serve, repeat. What's actually happening behind that counter is closer to running a supply chain company that happens to sell burgers. You've got real estate McDonald's Corporation owns and leases back to you. A food cost formula dictated almost entirely by corporate. Labor scheduling across sometimes 60-plus employees. And a royalty structure that takes a cut of your revenue every single month, whether you had a good month or not. McDonald's isn't really in the burger business. Famously, the company makes more from real estate and rent than from the actual food. As a franchisee, you're renting your own success from a landlord who's also your supplier.
This isn't a warning. It's exactly what makes the model work. McDonald's has skin in the game because they own the real estate, which means they're motivated to help you succeed, not just collect a fee and walk away. That's part of why McDonald's franchisee failure rates are dramatically lower than the franchise industry average. But here's what the numbers actually look like. Chapter 1. Startup Costs. McDonald's publishes its own numbers, and they're worth knowing cold. Total initial investment for a new franchise ranges from roughly $1.3 million to $2.3 million, depending on the location, whether it's a new build or an existing restaurant, and whether it includes a drive-thru and McCafé setup. Break that down, and here's where it goes. The franchise fee itself is $45,000, non-refundable, just to license the brand and system. Then there's equipment. Grills, fryers, POS systems, drive-through headsets, McCafé espresso machines, which typically run $600,000 to $900,000, depending on kitchen size and whether you're adding self-order kiosks. Signage, seating, and interior build-out for a modern experience of the future layout can add another $200,000 to $500,000. Here's the part most people miss. You don't usually buy the land or building outright. McDonald's owns or leases the real estate in the vast majority of cases, and then leases it to you, the franchisee, which is a completely different cost structure than most restaurant franchises, where you're financing the property yourself. That $500,000 liquid cash requirement we mentioned earlier isn't arbitrary. It's McDonald's making sure you can absorb the first 12 to 18 months of thinner margins while you build local customer volume, staff training, and operational rhythm without going under. In the UK, the equivalent setup cost typically runs $150,000 to $300,000 for existing restaurants transferred between franchisees, since new build opportunities are rarer there. In Canada, expect figures close to the US range, adjusted for exchange rates and provincial licensing. Chapter 2. Revenue Streams. A single McDonald's location isn't a one-product business. It's running 4 or 5 distinct revenue channels under one roof. Core menu sales are the obvious one: burgers, fries, chicken items, and combo meals. The average McDonald's U.S. location generates around $3.6 million in annual sales, according to figures franchisees and industry analysts regularly cite.
making it one of the highest revenue per unit numbers in all of quick service restaurants. Drive-thru is the biggest single channel, often accounting for 65% to 70% of total sales at a typical U.S. location, which is exactly why McDonald's has spent years re-engineering drive-thru speed and dual-lane setups, because shaving 10 seconds off average service time across millions of transactions translates into serious extra revenue. McCafé and beverage sales are the quiet profit driver. Coffee, specialty drinks, and shakes carry much higher margins than food items. A cup of coffee that costs pennies to make can sell for $2 to $4, making beverages one of the highest margin categories on the entire menu. Delivery and app-based ordering through McDonald's own app and partners like Uber Eats and DoorDash have become a real revenue line in the last several years, often adding 5% to 10% of total sales, though third-party delivery commissions of 15 to 30% eat into that margin meaningfully. Here's what most new franchisees underestimate. Breakfast alone can represent 25% or more of daily sales at some locations, which is why franchisees fight hard over site selection near commuter routes and office parks. Location isn't just about foot traffic, it's about which meal windows that location naturally captures.
Chapter 3. Operating Costs. This is where the real discipline of running a McDonald's shows up, because the ongoing costs are relentless and precisely structured. Royalties come first. Franchisees pay McDonald's Corporation 4% of gross sales every month, on top of rent, which at a typical location can run another 8% to 12% of sales, since McDonald's owns or controls most of the real estate. Combined, that's often 12% to 16% of your top-line revenue going straight to corporate before you've paid a single employee. Labor is the next major line. A typical location employs 40 to 90 staff across shifts, including both part-time crew and full-time management. With minimum wage increases across many U.S. states, UK, and Canadian provinces in recent years, labor costs now typically run 25% to 30% of sales, one of the largest controllable expenses an owner-operator manages day to day.
Food and paper costs, the actual cost of beef, buns, potatoes, packaging, typically run around 30% to 33% of sales, and McDonald's dictates supplier relationships and specifications tightly, which limits how much a franchisee can shop around, but also guarantees consistent quality and supply chain reliability that smaller independent restaurants can't match. Utilities, equipment maintenance, and required renovations add another layer. McDonald's requires periodic remodels, sometimes every 10 to 15 years, that can cost $250,000 to $750,000, depending on scope. And franchise agreements typically require you to fund these upgrades yourself. Stack royalties, rent, labor, and food costs together, and roughly 70% to 75% of every dollar in revenue is already spoken for before a franchisee sees a dime of profit.
Chapter 4. Profit margins and real numbers. So what's actually left over? Industry data and franchisee disclosure documents put average McDonald's location cash flow, what franchisees call EBITDA, before debt payments, at roughly 15 to 20% of gross sales for a well-run restaurant. Let's run the real numbers. Take that average $3.6 million in annual revenue. Royalties and rent, at roughly 14% combined, take about $504,000. Food and paper cost at 31% takes $1.116 million. Labor at 28% takes just over $1 million. That leaves roughly $972,000 before other operating expenses like utilities, insurance, marketing fund contributions. McDonald's requires 4% of sales toward national and local advertising, and equipment maintenance.
After those additional costs, typically another 8% to 10% of sales, a single well-performing McDonald's location often nets $500,000 to $700,000 in annual cash flow before accounting for the debt service on that initial $1.3 to $2.3 million investment. Here's what separates a good year from a great one: multi-unit ownership. The majority of McDonald's franchisees don't own just one restaurant. The average U.S. franchisee actually operates around 6 locations because fixed overhead like accounting, regional management, and marketing scales far more efficiently across multiple units. An operator with 3 to 4 well-located restaurants, each netting $500,000 plus, is looking at $1.5 million to $2 million a year in combined cash flow, which is exactly why McDonald's franchise ownership skews toward operators who reinvest profits into acquiring additional locations rather than staying at one restaurant.
Chapter 5: Risks and what makes someone succeed or fail. Now, the honest part. This business has real pressure points, and they're worth naming clearly. Labor cost inflation is the biggest ongoing squeeze. Minimum wage increases in states like California, along with rising wages across the UK and Canada, have pushed labor costs up faster than menu prices in many markets, compressing margins for operators who don't actively manage scheduling efficiency. Commodity price swings hit hard too. Beef and potato prices can spike 15 to 25% in a bad agricultural year, and franchise agreements don't let you simply substitute cheaper ingredients to compensate. Site selection risk is real and permanent. Pick a location with declining foot traffic or a shifting commuter pattern, and no amount of operational skill fixes a bad piece of real estate. And mandatory remodels are a cost every franchisee eventually faces, sometimes hitting right when cash flow is tightest.
But here's what actually separates operators who thrive from ones who struggle: operational discipline and multi-unit thinking from day one. The most successful franchisees treat labor scheduling like a science, use McDonald's own data and analytics tools aggressively, and reinvest early profits into acquiring a second and third location rather than pulling cash out for lifestyle spending. They also lean into drive-through speed and app-based ordering, since those channels now drive the bulk of incremental growth in the system. The operators who struggle usually made one of 2 mistakes. They underestimated how much working capital they need to survive a slow first year, or they treated the franchise as a passive investment instead of a hands-on operation requiring daily attention to labor, food cost, and customer experience. This is a business built for people who want to run an operation, not just collect a check.
Everything here is general business education, not financial, legal, or investment advice. If you're seriously exploring franchise ownership, you'd want a franchise attorney, an accountant experienced in multi-unit restaurant finance, and a review of the actual franchise disclosure document before signing anything. What's clear from the numbers is that a McDonald's franchise isn't a small business starter kit. It's a capital-intensive operation with genuinely strong unit economics for operators who come in prepared, disciplined, and ready to scale beyond one location. So here's my question for you. Would you rather put $1.5 million into one proven franchise system like this, or spread that same capital across 3 or 4 smaller independent businesses? Tell me which route you'd take and why in the comments.